And I think it's about time to move to our first presentation if you don't have anything else to add to this. Yeah, I guess let's move on. And we have our first speaker. Hi, Simeon. Thank you for being with us. And yeah.
Hello, everyone. Okay, let me just share my screen first on this end. And let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
All right, thanks. Thanks a lot. Okay, so let's get on with that real quick out of the way. Just a quick introduction for the ones of you that are not quite familiar with Vantage. So basically, this is going to be my agenda for the next 30 minutes. I'm going to try to tell the Chaos Vantage story, make a quick demo, and have some time for questions at the end. So what's the story behind Vantage? We started actually as a small project called Project Lavina. We announced that at the SIGGRAPH 2018, and that was during the V-Ray days when our CTO Vlado Kolazov actually announced the product or the project. There, and it was taken with great interest, and that was actually a product that we wanted to, or a project that we wanted to try the new upcoming hardware ray tracing capabilities of the latest generations of graphic cards, specifically in NVIDIA this time. Because they were the first ones at the time, and the technology was called, as you know, RTX. That was a collaboration between Microsoft and NVIDIA, again for the first iteration, and it got introduced into DirectX using the DXR name. And that allowed for straight direct ray tracing through the actually in a real-time or interactive context. So we designed the product with that technology in mind, and that was actually, as far as we know, the first product designed, especially with the RTX hardware in mind from the ground up. The results were really good. We were quite impressed when we compared it to our CUDA-based rendering software, V-Ray GPU, and we could achieve immediately, you know, on the same great hardware or on the same hardware, more than 5 times speed up. And that is, of course, hardware that supports hardware ray tracing acceleration. I'm saying this because there are some models of graphic cards that do support that can run Vantage, such as the 1080p, for example, the GTX 1080p. But unfortunately, it doesn't have ray tracing cores, and the performance there is not that significant. And also we wanted it to work with data from V-Ray because we wanted actually to work within the V-Ray ecosystem, not only with data from V-Ray, but we also wanted it to integrate the product with services like V-Ray like Chaos Cosmos. And we wanted to work without any additional extra work. More on that in the next slide. The design goals were to achieve real time, and of course, this is broadly speaking, but we use the term real time in our case as something that is able to render 24 frames per second at HD resolutions. Another goal we put ourselves to was 100% ray tracing, no rasterization, and yeah, that was one of the criteria we wanted to, or specifications we wanted to go for. Natural benefit of having only ray tracing was the fact that you can handle massive data, lots of polygons. This is absolutely no hassle. If you can fit the data set on the memory of the graphics card, you can render it quite fast. And then secondary benefit of that is also that you can render the very data as it was meant for a ray tracing engine. You don't need to do any additional tasks to optimize or unwrap or prepare LODs or even do any pre-passes such as light baking or shadow maps. All of these different technology or different types of rendering do not have to be mixed all together. It just works because it's already, the data has already been prepared for ray tracing. We also did it as a standalone application and not as opposed to a plugin, so that we can maximize the speed and stability and memory, and also keep the development entirely in our hands, so that we can make faster iterations and release out updates and new features much faster than the other way around. And yeah, the final goal was obviously to use, well, in the first days, Lavina, but then Vantage. Everywhere you can find V-Ray. And since rays are pretty much free because of the hardware acceleration, we figure out that all of these things that you can see, you get almost for free. You don't need to do any preparation, any caching of the light. You get all reflections, refractions, ambient occlusion, GI, everything rendered interactively in real time. You also get additional bells and whistles, so to speak, as automatic collision detection, automatic walking on the floor, ramps, staircases, bumping into walls, and so on and so forth. And you also get ray trace depth of field and hit testing and selection. We can use these for even more advanced effects further on in development. Here's a bit of the initial feedback we got over the initial release. Vantage actually was released as a open beta, while still when it was still named Project Lavina. That was in 2020, and you can see some of the feedback that we got a few months down the testing period, and yeah, I think it's quite nice to say for people to say that they will remember the days trying the full ratings, a real-time ray tracer. More on that a bit later on. What are the use cases for Vantage? This was actually gathered and validated mainly from our testers and customers. So we see Vantage being used as a personal design exploration tool, where you can quickly get in the project, walk around, and get to real time really quickly, without the hassle of preparing, without the technical knowledge of preparing the data set. We also see Vantage being used as a pre-visualization tool, where you can set up your camera angles, lighting conditions, and toggle different states, if you will, on the scene by moving objects or turning off and on visibility of the object. And then either use that for client reviews or just internal reviews to communicate your idea better, to present it better. And because everything happens in real time and is ray traced, you can do all kinds of changes, very drastic ones, and see them reflected in real time in front of you. We also saw customers using Vantage for blade blasts. That's why we added the functionality to create small or simple animations, relatively fast and hassle-free. Create from the bookmarks that you've created. And that tool was ideal for fly-throughs, walkthroughs, and directing simple camera cuts. And finally, we also noticed that customers wanted to do different configurations and also assemble different VR scenes within the application. So this is also yet another use case. And in the words of Nigel here as well, I've extracted a part of a webinar we did with Urban VFX. You can get the link from the QR code here. Here is, and I'm not sure why this is very, very, very low quality. So I'm going to just quickly rewind that. Oops. Okay, quickly go there. Sorry, Nigel, I muted you here, but
That's all right.
But one of the ideas here is, can you see the YouTube view?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
The idea here was that Nigel was comparing the difference between rendering the image, an image for 30 seconds per frame, and then a frame for 6 minutes with V-Ray. And if I remember correctly, that was also sent over over the Chaos Cloud, so that it rendered faster. The bottom line was that the left sequence of images was rendered on a single workstation for 30 seconds a frame, and provided much more flexibility and allowed much more iteration, because these images, excuse me, or these animations, more often than not get thrown away. They are just their purposes for a particular review or iteration of the review, and they're shown to the customer and to the client, and after that they are just wasted. So this is also a good way of getting into being more optimized, being more flexible, and work much faster. I strongly suggest watching the whole webinar if you haven't. So I'm going to leave that just for a bit there, so that you can get the link, where Nigel shows also the way they utilize Vantage in the conditions of work from home, where you can connect with the customer directly and do over the shoulder, so to speak, over the web presentation or session, and brainstorm, do design changes or variations in real time again, with the tool, with the Chaos Vantage, because everything is ray traced. I'm getting a bit tired of repeating that everything is fully ray traced. I hope you get the idea. I'm going to move to the next slide, where I'm going to actually switch the sharing here really quickly to my remote desktop. And for that, I have to switch to my other virtual self. Even now I'm working on the remotely, and I'm going to share with my workstation from the Chaos office. All right. Can you see my screen? Should be.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, so I have this EverMotion scene opened here in 3ds Max. And I also have initialized Live Link from 3ds Max to Chaos Vantage. And you can do so by going to the Chaos Vantage tab or toolbar, and pressing the Start Stop Live Link button, the first button over here. And now we have also Chaos Vantage running. So just to make sure I'm just going to walk around a little bit or rotate the image and walk around. As you can see, everything is quite responsive. I'm not sure how the connection behaves, so you may see some stuttering, but the frame rate here is about 20 frames per second. This is rendered on 720p. And now, since I'm using Live Link with 3ds Max, I'm going to do a real quick tip. I'm going to show you a tip, and I'm going to do this real quickly. And the preferences in the UI section, there is always on top section option. I'm going to use that temporarily. And I'm also going to double click on the side toolbars here to or the side panels to get rid of those. And I'm going to minimize or restore actually, and make it smaller, so that I'm going to use it as a viewport overlay on top of 3ds Max. This is a cool way to have both Vantage and 3ds Max running at the same time. And because we have a live link here, you can see that it's being updated automatically. Now, this is Vantage is still rendering 720p and sharpening the result or shrinking the result in the sense it doesn't sharpen. But yeah, anyway, this is a waste of performance, so I'm just going to quickly lower this to 540 or even more, but I get 30 frames per second, so this is fine with me. This is much lower than 540p. Anyway, now I can do changes in real time. I can work here by manipulating the position of objects or changing the light conditions. For example, I open up the light lister and go turn off the sun. Probably there we have a skylight portal. I'm just going to disable those guys here, and I'm going to just leave some of the interior lighting. And I'm not sure which one are those. Okay, yeah, there we go. So basically, I'm just going to need to reduce the exposure, and I can just now play around with the intensity of the light. Come on. Yeah, this is why you shouldn't use default units. You have to go very, very large values. All right, and now I can start manipulating all aspects of the scene, by the way. I'm not limited to changing lights or objects as well. Everything you can change in 3ds Max will be reflected in the viewport, or sorry, in Vantage. So I'm going to get the material here, and let's just try and adjust the translucency. So, for example, oops, it's a mess. Apologies for the whole mess. So more translucency or less translucency, or even get some coloration there, and we can get this to work. Or probably we can get a texture here. Let's use, I don't know, checker, and then obviously this is not a very meaningful setup, but I just wanted to quickly show that you can perform these changes in real time. All right, and then let's try and tile this guy a little bit more, so that at least we achieve something that an artist might want to do, something like this. A cool option is that at any given time I can right-click in the viewport and start navigating here. I can even press Control and the accent or the tilde key to get rid of every control in Vantage, which will clean up the interface a bit more, even more. Or you can also use the regular navigation, by the regular 3ds Max navigation, with the zoom in and zoom out and orbit around, or the first-person navigation by holding the right mouse button. Okay, but enough of that. The cool thing is that, as I said, you can use this as a temporary walk around in the Vantage viewport. But as soon as you do small modifications, so for example, I can just move the object here, or no, sorry, the camera, if I, let's say, switch the frame really quickly, I'm going to get back to the original camera or move the camera. It also works. So this will switch back to the original camera position. Alternatively, you can also lock the camera position using the traditional 3ds Max workflow, and then you'll not be going away if, for example, you want to go to perspective mode, or yeah, anything else similar to that. You can still explore your scene with the 3ds Max viewport without going away from the camera view. And I feel that I'm taking way too much time. I'm just going to continue the workflow just a little bit by saying that because of the fact that whenever I change anything in 3ds Max, I get the view reset in here. This means that I will not be able to make actual animations with Vantage. And to do that, you will have to export the view scene and import it into Vantage, and then continue your work from there. Now, because this process takes a few clicks and could be a bit, a bit time consuming, with the view scene exporter and then setting up settings over here, we've also added a couple of buttons here on the toolbar. The first one is exporting the static scene, so only the frame that you're looking at. And if you have animation, you can click the third button, which will export the animation range as a VR scene and directly send it to Vantage, and we'll open it the moment it gets exported. To indicate that we're in live link, you can see this live link text here. So now I'm going to stop the live link. And actually, I will open up the scene here because I have prepared a previous configuration with a few bookmarks. Oops. With a few bookmarks. And I'm going to just click on the first one. And also an animation here, as you can see, if I pop up the animation toolbar, you'll be able to see that I have a few transitions. Scrub the time slider. You can see that I've prepared this animation. And by the way, I've prepared this animation from cameras that have been present in the original Max file. Now multiple camera export is also supported since a few updates, and you can just drag and drop camera clips here and create this type of animation with the cameras from 3ds Max. You don't have to create new ones. Currently, this is a bit low to my taste, so I just might increase the resolution. And now we're slowly going into the length of the updates. We added a few things with the last few updates of Vantage. The first one, some of the key ones were integration with the Gas Cosmos. And you can do that by pressing the button here. Hopefully, oops, sorry. Well, yeah, something went wrong and the Gas Cosmos service is not working. But I'm using a very, very late build, or sorry, native build to show you something new that we are working on. And this was somewhat expected, but yes, we have the Kiosk browser integrated as part of Vantage in the stable builds, and you can drag and drop assets within the scene and arrange those assets here. We also added some snapping functionality and to make the placement of assets even easier. And yeah. All right. A few other additions that we also have is some variation with the UV randomizer, which you can see here on the floor, and some other interesting additions that I don't want to talk about. Since I know that I want to talk quite a lot about this, about the what we have, you can just go ahead and download that. I just wanted to mention where we are heading at, and that's we'll be implementing now something called, well, the best way to compare that would be scene state as in 3ds Max. So we're working on ways um, to create the variations in scene for different conditions, for different camera angles. And to start with that, we now implemented per camera resolution or aspect ratio. So, for example, if I go here and select one of the cameras, or I don't know, over here, this guy. Come on. Okay, and I decided the landscape aspect is not that good for this shot. I can just go ahead and unlock the aspect ratio and say I can obviously lower the resolution, but that would have me calculate the aspect ratio. So I can just type in an aspect ratio that I want. For example, I would like square 1:1. Or maybe even go with a 2/3, so 6:7. All right, something like that. And now I can just go ahead and save this camera. And now this camera will remember its resolution. So if I go and switch to the other camera here, or this one, the resolution is going to be brought back to the original landscape. And if I go to the newly created camera, now we have the resolution tied to the camera. This will help. This will help in the sense of creating aspect ratio exactly for the shot that you want, for the viewpoint that you're currently setting up, and will work really nicely with the upcoming feature of getting states or variations per camera or per shot. So that would be the thing that we're currently working on. And I don't want to take more of the time, so I'm going to stop, or maybe not stop the presentation, but at least go into the section of yeah. But I need to stop the presentation for that. So anyway, I'm going to stop that, and if needed, we'll go back to it. And share my screen again with the Q&A screen. So I believe that was everything I wanted to touch on, and we have some time before we get bored to death. I believe. I hope you don't. But if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Fantastic, Simeon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I've been so I watched Nigel's presentation maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was longer than that. I can't remember when it was.
Yeah.
And I thought,
it was longer than that.
Good. Yeah. Well, maybe not since I watched it, because I don't follow you like a hawk, Nigel. But it was fantastic. It was really, really good. My favourite bit was when Nigel asked someone about the fish in the pond. I loved it. He loved it. He's got half of Wembley. He's got all of Wembley in there, and Nigel's fussing about the fish. But just goes to show how much you can throw at Vantage. I thought it was fantastic.
That there's a leading question for Simeon, because the fish were keyframed, and Simeon, do you have any sort of update on? Because if I was to use Populate in 3D Studio Max, can I get character animation into Vantage right now?
Yeah, so I have a similar question, and it's to do with sub-vertex animation in Vantage, which you just can't quite do at the moment. But that would be really exciting, even if it was animated V-Ray proxies or Alembic or something like that. It'd be really cool.
Right. Well, this is a quite requested feature, and it's on our roadmap. It's not in the immediate vicinity yet. There are some things we need to take care of first. The simple reason for that is that this is a performance killer feature. The problem with the deformable meshes is that it will most likely hit. It will be a hit on the performance significant, and the complex the mesh, the more complex the mesh, the more hit on performance. So we want to be careful with that. We want to implement it at least in a way that the user has control over that, because in the end, we want Vantage to be a real-time application.
I've got two more questions, Simeon. Firstly, my first question was, can we get the V-Ray frame buffer 2 color correction controls, all of that stuff in Vantage? Because that would be incredible.
Yes, this is also another requested feature. Obviously, it's a close or very anticipated continuation of the workflow, so to speak. We know that the current system with LUTs is not sufficient. We will start with that. I'm not sure if we can add all of the functionality of the V-Ray frame buffer of VFB2. The reason is that it's quite complex. We have light mix, we have compositing workflows over there, Cryptomath support, and so on and so forth.
I think it just needs to be sort of the look and feel. So sort of the curves and exposure balance a bit more, and the filmic. We'll
definitely start with more of the simpler color corrections, like filmic tone mapping and saturation, lightness, curve color corrections, probably levels. I'm not sure if both curves and levels are needed, because they're to some extent duplication. But yes, we will definitely work with those, or add those. We also had a few requests for, but again, bear in mind, every calculation here adds a few milliseconds on top of the frame rate. So we will be very careful adding features that are adding significant performance hit. For example, the VFB2 lens effects are quite costly, and we'll probably not add them soon.
So, Simeon,
for me that would be fine, because the great thing about Vantage is that you've got this. We're taking render times down from maybe 5 minutes to 30 seconds. So an extra few seconds for me. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's 30 seconds or 35 seconds when it's rendering out a sequence. I think the option to have it there would be incredible. But the other interesting question I had, well, I hope it's interesting, is okay, Vantage is great for an artist. The workflow is really good, or it's getting to be really good. But how about like a presentation mode, or is there
that was one of my requests too.
How you can leverage the technology to be able to present it. So maybe, I mean, I know you'd need a computer with a good graphics card, but it would be great if there was, like, maybe you could publish a standalone executable with a Vantage scene
in Chaos Cloud.
Yeah, it would be incredible. I mean, as soon as you do that, it's gonna take off, because it's so fantastic. I mean, the image quality is so good, and the fact that you can spin around a model is so good that everyone I've shown my Vantage scenes to so far has said, how can I put this? How can I run this in a client presentation? At the moment, I'm saying, but it would be great to be able to say, we go to this web link and there it is. You can spin around this model in your client presentation, and it will look like a render. That would be killer.
Well, you can do a remote session as I was doing today, and that currently works. The kind of a the problem with that is that it's still a workaround, and you have to have so to speak, a Vantage artist or a Vantage operator to operate with the program, because it's not completely user friendly for a non-artist, for non-3D artists. So you'll have to know how to tune, for example, the exposure or the navigation controls that are akin to 3D or to DCC.
But I was thinking you could set all that up and then publish it, so it's already done. So it's not interactive, other than you can move around in the scene. I mean, that would be huge.
Yes, we are definitely considering something like that. It's a no surprise. It was again one of the firstly requested. You know, I bet that if I dig around on the forums, it will be like 2 or 3 days after our release, and that question popped up. And yes, you're correct. The way to go wouldn't be an executable in the form of something that is going to be deployed on the customer on a client machine, because we can't guarantee that there is a capable hardware there. And Vantage does require an RTX card to run. It will not perform otherwise. It will not start otherwise. And depending on the power of the graphics card, it will run, you know, with different speed. So it's much better for you to set up a workstation that you know it's going to deliver the experience you want to. And then yes, this is something that we are working on actually again at this time, but it will take a little bit more time to make sure that the result, you know, there are all kinds of other issues there regarding latency and fast image. You know, you're going to Vantage for the quality, so that we need to have a proper way of sending the images back so that they deliver the quality that Vantage can provide. So,
Simeon, I have a question. I have a question from Fernando in the chat. Now, Fernando works with me, and we are producing or rendering out about 10 minutes of HD shots a night, and that's on 2 workstations. So we are churning out the work. Now, what Fernando's question is, when we look at a shot and within that sequence, so we've got like 20 shots that we've stacked up. Now, we may want to just re-render like 100 or 200 frames, but we have to actually re-render all of the, well, we can actually delete some of the shots, but we have to render the whole shot again. And Fernando's question is, will there be a facility to choose a frame range to render in the future?
Yeah, very close actually. We are working on a few updates here. There is somebody hasn't muted themselves. Okay, thanks. So yes, this is one of the again of the things that we are working on. That would be in the more short-term releases. We're improving things like that. Currently, you can set the in and out markers. There are tiny red and green arrows at the bottom of the timeline that will trim your timeline so that you can render only those frames. But we do realize that a manual input of frame this number till this frame number is going to be much more easier to control. Was that the question, by the way?
It was, and you answered it. And Fernando, there you go. You can set those markers for tonight and keep rendering.
Right, right. Yeah, I just wanted to keep this page here open so that people can get to Kia's Vantage. And I'm not sure if needed. Yeah. So
I actually have a question for Simon, so he's running away actually. Are you going to? No, he's run away. You can possibly answer it now. Simon, in his rendering life, I think uses Corona, but now on an animation side of things, he's moved back to using V-Ray and Vantage. What can you say to the Corona community out there of is there something in the future for them with Vantage, or is that too far down the line?
Of course, we need, as I said, that we want to keep Vantage to work nicely with the V-Ray ecosystem, or the Chaos ecosystem. Sorry, not the V-Ray ecosystem. That is what I meant, and we want to make the life easier for transferring things from Corona. There is a tiny problem there that we will need to redo.
Overcome.
Yeah, we will need to redo the import system quite a lot to make it work with Corona. So a short and that will take time. So
Yeah.
a shortcut to that would be to use V-Ray as an intermediate solution, because V-Ray can convert Corona assets into V-Ray native fonts, and then from there you can use the live link or the V-Ray scene exporter to get there. Obviously, some things won't be supported. It's a subject of.
Yeah. Now, I'm not a Revit user, but if I was using Revit and V-Ray for Revit, can I export a VR scene and then bring that into Vantage?
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, one of the short-term roadmaps is also to enable Chaos Vantage for other DCCs, not only 3ds Max. We started with 3ds Max, but we now we have tested internally that live links with V-Ray for Maya and V-Ray for SketchUp, V-Ray for Rhino, V-Ray for Revit, they also work. And currently we're in the making of improving the user experience and enabling actually the user experience for the above mentioned applications to be accessible with Vantage as well. So yes, not only you can export a VR scene, you can do that now, a VR scene from Revit, but soon you will have a one-click solution to get to Live Link. The way I shown with 3ds Max.
That actually, I'm going to go back to your Cosmos thing you were trying to show. Now, we being Fernando, who's in the chat, what we're doing in Cosmos in Vantage now is we're actually dragging quite a lot of assets straight into that and setting it all up. And I think I don't know the percentage of time we're spending actually modeling or placing and moving things around in Vantage, which is fantastic. And I think depending on the DCC tool you're using, that to assemble things now in Vantage is super quick. What we're forgetting to do is, so we may spend like half a day setting up a scene, bringing in a whole bunch of trees and everything and say, that looks super cool. Hang on a sec, we've got to go and redo that all in Max again.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to have that backwards workflow, but I know that's difficult.
Yeah. We know about that as well. It's also something that we want to improve in some way. It's to a certain extent we have started doing that with via Max script for the cameras from Vantage. And that will get extended with more support for lights and Cosmos assets as well. So yeah, that will come. The problem is that it's a little bit different for other DCCs, and I'm not sure if that would be only done for 3ds Max and probably Maya, where you have a more extensive scripting language where you can do that easier.
It is just a workflow, and I mean, for us, it's been phenomenal. Simon's seen the light, and especially if you're working in an architect office, and as you touched on before, if you're iterating all the time, and I think you and I in our webinar discuss it in the chat at the end, where I think some people questioned, how does this compare to a game engine? I think we both discussed, well, this isn't. This is so quick to actually iterate and to move things around. If you're working in Revit or Max or whatever, it's a matter of seconds, and you're up and running, and it's rendering.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Vantage the Vantage installs in about 15 seconds. and it starts also in about 15 seconds the first time because it needs to compile some kernels, and after that the starting of Vantage takes, I don't know, less than 5 seconds, 2 seconds, something like that. And the loading of scenes in Vantage is so much faster than any other DCCs that people are wishing they could get something like that back in the DC. But either way, my point here is that yes, you can iterate faster even if you're starting Vantage and loading the scenes. You will still be iterating faster than doing subsequent changes in the DCCs. Sometimes the scenes are so heavy that the viewport of the DCC is struggling so much more and makes it even impossible to work with. So yeah.
But I also think that, like what Simon was touching on before, we've got to remember that this isn't V-Ray. This
Yes.
Depending on how you use it, it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be designed as a competition to your other products. It supports them, and
Absolutely.
the way that we're using it, the way that Simon's now using it, is in that really fast design process where, you know, it costs you money to actually send to a render farm or to basically have a render farm. This way, as I mentioned before, we're churning out work and reviewing them at dailies and just throwing it away and doing it again at no cost. It's brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing is that a client's attention span is really, really low, and if they don't see, they will not be able to wait for another subsequent render, even if it takes a minute or so. You know, so it's much easier to just change something and see it directly, even though it's a little bit smudged out from the denoiser at the first couple of milliseconds or a second. But then you see the result immediately, and I think it's you guys can vouch for that when using it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Nigel. I have to interrupt you because you can talk about that forever.
I was just looking at the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, we can chat about that at the end, but I'm just conscious of time, and that's my role here. So I want to say thank you. It was a great presentation, and it was really, really nice and really interesting, and I'll definitely try it because I haven't yet.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and for answering all the questions Nigel had. I think everyone in the audience had them anyway, so it was really cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
So yeah, I would suggest we move on to our next speakers, just because it's getting quite late and I don't want people to be tired.